Good morning, recruits. It's good to see you all again. I am, of course, your beloved Marine instructor and Conqueror's hockey master, Lieutenant Commander Jelly D. Jiggler. And in today's lecture, we're going to be discussing something I've been thinking about since doing research on other One Piece related topics, and that's why the Seven Warlords of the Sea were completely useless. Now, put your pitchforks down. I'm not saying that the Warlords as a concept or as characters were useless to the story or the world of One Piece in any way. I'm not a complete moron. I mean in terms of their purpose to the Marines and the world government in the One Piece universe. They just kinda never worked, and it's honestly surprising that it took as long as it did for the system to be thrown out. So can anybody tell me why it was that the warlord system was first established by the world government? No, don't raise your hand. I can't actually see you. Well, according to the story, the warlords were a group of powerful pirates that the world government contracted into working with them, and in return, the warlords were allowed to basically continue business as usual, I guess, as long as they didn't mess with any world government operations or territory. That is, of course, until they were revoked of their titles and replaced with robot clones of themselves, a fate no doubt coming to us all in due time. And now, I'm sure just by that description alone you can identify the problem here, that these crazy powerful and often morally bankrupt pirates were essentially given free rein to do whatever they want as long as they answered their government emails or some shit. But the main reason that the world government really wanted this system put in place was to help balance the power dynamics of the One Piece world. As the four emperors, the four most powerful pirates in the world, kind of completely overshadowed the power of the Marines. And I mean, such was obvious as it took every top Marine commander coming together along with the Seven Warlords of the Sea to even try and fight one of the four Emperor's fleets during Marineford. So let's go through all 11 of the Seven Warlords that we've come to know throughout the story and talk about why they were almost all net negatives to, and if anything, just ended up hurting the world government in the long run. And we'll go in order of when we met them in the stories, starting with Buggy the Clown. He may not have been a warlord when we first met him in the story, but this goofy, inept dumbass managed to fall his way upwards into a role as a warlord during the time skip. This of course followed him being a key member, at least in the general public's eyes, of the Impel Down breakout and subsequent interruption of the Marineford War alongside Luffy, Jinbei, and Crocodile. But I guess for some reason the world government was just like, man, fuck it, dude. It's the Seven Warlords. We need seven. Call the Clown. During his tenure as a warlord is when Buggy would run his Buggy's Delivery Service, essentially a mercenary for hire agency where kingdoms and other groups can pay for assistance from pirates that work for Buggy. I always thought it was kind of weird that the government just let this slide, but then again, they have literal human slave auction houses, so I guess I shouldn't really look at them as a beacon of morality. But unfortunately for the world government, after the abolishment of the warlord system, Buggy would go on to lead the organization Cross Guild, a sort of reverse bounty hunters guild where they put bounties on marine heads that anyone from civilians to pirates can cash in on. And he would of course form this group with Dracula Mihawk,
A prick crocodile.
Sir Crocodile, who, of course, were both former warlords as well. As I'm sure we're all aware, Dracula Hawkeye Mihawk is the reigning world's strongest swordsman and world's bravest shitter. Back in the day before his warlord status, he was known as the Marine Hunter for reasons I hope are self-explanatory, and it's basically because of this and this alone that he was asked to be a warlord. Yeah, the government was basically tired of this maniac going around and slaughtering all the people on their payroll, so they just said, hey, if you become a warlord and stop killing Marines all the time, we'll just let you do whatever the fuck you want, man. And he probably said something like, can I live in a spooky castle on a dark and dreary island inhabited only by war-hungry baboons? And they were like, dude, we don't care as long as you just leave us alone. So that is to say, I'm pretty sure it was less Mihawk working for the world government and him not working against the world government. I mean, the one time they even called him in to do something, to fight during Marineford, he very clearly was not putting much effort into doing so. I don't care what people try to argue. You think Dracula Mihawk is struggling against Vista? Dracula Mihawk? And of course, as soon as he lost his warlord status and the world government came a knocking at his door, he would not only immediately go back to cutting down Marines like grass, but kinda helped form an entire organization specifically about doing that exact thing. Which of course brings us to the final founding member and of course real brains of the Cross Guild, Sir Crocodile. Having been a warlord when first introduced, he would be the first to have his position removed after being defeated by Luffy and having his whole taking over Alabasta plot exposed to the public. But considering he was spending all of his time running an assassin's guild and attempting a coup, I can't imagine he spent much time helping the world government with anything. And if anything, I'm just surprised that no one in the world government or the Marines tried to investigate Baroque works. That's in addition to the live action that I very much appreciate. And not only were the real reasons behind his defeat covered up since he was, defeated by Luffy, but it would also be the first domino to fall in the chain of events that would eventually lead to the warlord system being abandoned, as the effort was mainly led by King Cobra of Alabasta. Though of course he did have another king supporting him in Riku Doldo III, who had just so happened to fall victim to another warlord of the sea, Don Quixote Doflamingo. Known as the Heavenly Demon, Doflamingo might have had one of the largest influences of all the warlords prior to his defeat, which of course was by Luffy's hands. It's almost like he's the main character of the story or something. But Dofi basically ran the underground black market of One Piece, and had ties to several major players such as the Emperor Kaido. And this is a fact that I doubt the world government was just unaware of. But much like Mihawk, it seems Doflamingo more had his status due to leverage he had over the world government. Whereas Mihawk had his crazy strength and habit of killing people, Doflamingo seems to be privy of many government secrets, including the quote-unquote sacred treasure of the Holy Land, due to his origin as a celestial dragon. It's because of this that when they imprisoned him on Impel Down, they kept him in his very own isolated cell from anyone else, just even on the slight chance he tells anyone something that he might know. It's because of this that I think, as well as probably a lot of other people, that after the inevitable second breakout of Impel Down, that Doflamingo will become some sort of key player. Probably not in gunning for the One Piece, but at least in taking out the world government, Five Elders, and Emu. Speaking of taking down the Five Elders, let's move on to the tyrant Bartholomew Kuma. Contrary to what his epithet might cause you to think, Kuma is quite possibly one of, if not the kindest character in the entire One Piece world. A far cry from basically everyone else we'll be talking about today. Except maybe Jinbei. And Law, I guess. Maybe. Now, Kuma was by far the most useful to the government out of all the warlords, mostly because his contract involved him becoming a brainless cyborg and being the basis for an army of robot clone soldiers. So I think overall the best deal the government got out of these guys. Unfortunately, as obedient and useful as he was still discreetly assisting the Revolutionary Army the whole time. And not to mention probably his most defining act, which was when he saved the Straw Hats on Sabaody Archipelago, which of course led almost directly to the 2-year time skip and the Straw Hats becoming as powerful as they are today. After this, Kuma was essentially just used as a brainless golem and passed around by the world nobles and abused as they wish, up until being rescued by Sabo and the other revolutionaries during their raid on the Holy Land. And while Kuma seemed completely and utterly gone, he would soon spring to life and fly halfway across the world during the Egghead incident, where it seemed his inherent instinct to protect his daughter Bonnie allowed him to push past his vegetative state and keep the last thing he holds dear safe, and maybe punch an elder in the face, if he feels like it. And while it's unclear whether we'll ever get Kuma back in any recognizable form, it's safe to say he has been one of the key factors in what will inevitably be the downfall of the world government. And another character who will no doubt play a part in that is Marshall D. Teach, known more commonly, of course, as Blackbeard. And yeah, I know I kind of broke the order because he showed up before Doflamingo and Kuma, but if anyone's allowed to break my rules, it's me, goddammit. After betraying Whitebeard's crew, killing a crewmate, and stealing an incredibly powerful devil fruit, Blackbeard was offered Crocodile's spot following the latter's removal, since Blackbeard had defeated and brought Porcus D. Ace to the world government. However, he definitely held the title for the shortest amount of time, as he would use his status to infiltrate Impel Down during the big breakout, recruiting several powerful and dangerous criminals onto his crew. They would then, of course, go on to crash the Marineford War and be the ones to get the final blow on Whitebeard, which Teach then, in a still unknown manner, mind you, stole Whitebeard's devil fruit, making him the only person in the entire One Piece world up to this point that we know of to wield 2 devil fruits at the same time. Due to this fact and his following conflicts with former Whitebeard pirate members, Blackbeard would go on to become one of the 4 emperors in Whitebeard's place over the time skip, where he would also come into possession of the pirate island Hachinosu, which he still uses as his headquarters to this day. And of course, Blackbeard has been an absolute thorn in the government's side ever since. And it seems that he'll only be causing more havoc as he now not only has a crew member that can transform into one of the 5 elders, or at least former Five Elders, but has of course the most famous Marine of all time, Garp the Fist, held hostage, and seems to plan to use him as some sort of bargaining chip to help turn Pirate Island into a kingdom allied with the world government, and Blackbeard as its acting king. Now, why Blackbeard wants to do this? I have not a damn clue. Is it part of some bigger plan, or is he just doing it for fun? No matter what it is, I'm sure it will end up benefiting the government in no way whatsoever. And now moving on, next we have Gecko Moria. Now, Moria's defining character trait is that he is a lazy piece of shit. It's not entirely known when he became a warlord, but at the very least it was after getting his entire crew wiped out by Kaido and then farting around in the fog on an island boat for 20 years. But I cannot imagine he ever ended up doing jack shit for the government. I mean, he couldn't even do the one task which we saw him asked to carry out, which was to take care of the Straw Hats on Thriller Bark. And no, I don't think it's entirely because the Straw Hats are badasses, it's also because Moria is a big fucking idiot. After this major fumble, he would essentially be sentenced to execution by the world government, which was supposed to be carried out by Doflamingo during Marineford. Which means either Doflamingo disobeyed orders or he just wasn't able to finish the job, though I do find it highly unlikely that Doflamingo and 6 pacifistas couldn't take out one already exhausted Moria. After the time skip, Moria would go to Hachinosu to confront Blackbeard for stealing his crewmate Absalom, though of course he was too late as Absalom was already killed and his fruit taken by Shiryu of the Rain. And this led to him being imprisoned on Hachinosu up until him being broken out by Perona and Kobe during the latter's great escape. And that's the last we've seen of Moria. I don't know where he might show up in the story again, but I think one thing's for certain if he does, and that is he will be completely fucking useless. But moving swiftly on, we have the Surgeon of Death, Trafalgar Law. Law became a warlord during the time skip, and he did so by, I kid you not, sending the world government 100 hearts of different pirates. And I just have to ask, why? Like, sure, I guess it could be a show of dominance if you sent like 100 Marine hearts or something. But no, I guess they were supposed to be like a peace offering or a trade. But like, what the fuck is the world government supposed to do with those hearts? What did they do with those hearts? Are they just sitting somewhere in a closet on the Holy Land? Anyway, he basically only used his warlord status as a tool in his plot to get back at Doflamingo by pretending to work under the crazy fart clown. Of course, using his status as an excuse as to why he's on Punk Hazard. Here, he would also, of course, form an alliance with main character and future Pirate King Monkey D. Luffy. Not to mention having saved the guy's life 2 years prior at Marineford. But not only would his status as a warlord be revoked after revealing his alliance with Luffy, he would also be a key factor in defeating Doflamingo, which of course led to the abolishment of the warlord system as we know it. But hey, at least the government still has all those pirate hearts, right? He would also of course be a major player in the raid on Onigashima and the downfall of Kaido and Big Mom, Law having fought and defeated the latter alongside Eustace Kid. This would then of course lead to him gaining a 3 billion berry bounty, a very short-lived glory as he would almost immediately get his entire crew wiped out by Blackbeard on Wiener Island, which is just rubbing salt in the wound. Do you mean to tell me that the resting ground for the Hard Pirates' prized submarine is the waters of Wiener Island? Oda might actually be evil for that one. And on the subject of people with a recently formed grudge against Blackbeard, we have Pirate Empress Boa Hancock. If you transition, I know, but we're already this late into the video, I gotta get through this list at some point. Hancock is of course the acting ruler of the Island of Women, Amazon Lily. Her immense personality and power of the love fruit, allowing her to turn anyone with any sort of strong feeling towards her into stone, makes her a formidable fighting force in the One Piece world, explaining why the government might want to conscript her as a warlord. But Boa Hancock never gave a shit about any of that. I mean, the first time we even see her get orders from the Marines, which was to attend Marineford and battle Whitebeard's crew, she immediately shot it down and was just ready to give up her title then and there. That is, of course, until she fell in love with a cracked up monkey boy who needed her to take him there. And I mean, because of that, in a way, you could kind of say that everything about Marineford, at least the parts that Sengoku didn't plan, was kind of her fault. And I don't even think the government ever found out. I mean, if she never brought Luffy to Marineford, he never would have started the jailbreak, and not to mention proceeding to crash Marineford and temporarily free Ace. But also, if Luffy's jailbreak didn't happen, Blackbeard might have had a harder time or taken longer with his excursion into Impel Down, leading him to show up to Marineford later, which, I don't know, I guess could work out in the Marines' favor or not. we'll never know. And I think what's especially funny about Hancock is that even when she's fired and replaced with a robot clone of herself, she still ends up biting the government in the ass, since as Snake is programmed off of her instincts, she listens to anything Luffy asks her to do. Which I'm sure will be a flaw in more of the Seraphim that we'll see going forward. At least, I hope so. But let's just hope that S. Flamingo doesn't get near as ambitious as his origin. Okay, moving on. We're close to done here, people. I could see some of you falling asleep. We're talking about the Fishman Karate Master and most recent addition to the Straw Hat crew. First son of the sea, Jinbei. Jinbei is a whale shark fishman who originates from the Ryugu Kingdom on Fishman Island. He didn't start off in the pirating business, as he was originally a member of Neptune's army, a position he would quit after his friend Fisher Tiger launched an attack on the Holy Land Marijois, to which he would then go on to join the Sun Pirates with Fisher Tiger as its captain. After traveling the seas and freeing many a slave, Jinbei would eventually take the role of captain himself after the death of Fisher Tiger, and at some point would of course become a warlord of the sea. And Jinbei's status as a warlord is probably one of the most interesting, as it also acts as a sort of peace treaty between the humans of the surface world and the fishmen of Fishman Island, with Jinbei acting as almost an ambassador between the two. Fishman still didn't have rights, and Fishman Island was still not allied with the world government, being Whitebeard's territory, and following his death, Big Mom's territory. But even still, this was kind of a major move for human-fishman relations. Of course, up until his status was revoked after refusing to fight Whitebeard's fleet and marine force, since Jinbei was a longtime ally and friend of the crew, as well as, of course, Ace. This would of course lead to his imprisonment at Impel Down and subsequent rescue by means of Luffy, who he quickly grew fond of, to the point of even risking his own life to save him. He would also, of course, be the one to break Luffy out of his mental breakdown following the events of the Marineford War, forming a bond that we would only see grow deeper as time goes on. Jinbei would then of course briefly ally with the Big Mom pirates since they took Fishman Island as their territory, though of course he only did so long enough to find another source of protection that, was more reliable and less terrifying, a source he would find in One Monkey D. Luffy. This would of course then lead him to quit the Big Mom pirates, being probably one of, if not the only person to do so without being murdered because he's the boss, and then join Luffy's crew as the helmsman of the Straw Hat Pirates. Meaning of course he will be joining them in their inevitable raising of the world government as it stands. And last but damn certainly not least, we get to talk about everybody's favorite One Piece character, Edward Weevil. You didn't think I'd forget Edward Weevil now, did you? Obviously, I don't really have as much to say about Weevil as I did the other warlords. Honestly, I feel like he's more of a last minute, well, we're down warlords again, is there anybody we can call who might be interested? And then Miss Buckingham Stussy walked in and said,
"Why, yes, my beautiful and powerful son, who, by the way, is apparently the biological son of Whitebeard, is more than capable of being a warlord of the sea."
And I guess they just ran with it. I mean, I guess he was going around slaughtering former Whitebeard pirates, so I guess that could be a reason the government were okay with contracting him. It's just, really? This guy? They just never meet the guy? Because honestly, I trust him as a warlord less than like Mori or Doflamingo. At least they have some functioning brain cells and don't take executive orders from their mommy. I don't know, I guess that's all we have to cover in today's lecture. I don't know, I guess I should talk about Hanafuda, the warlord that was mentioned in one SBS very recently as the one that Ace defeated, but that's literally all we know about him, so I guess there you go. There's your Hanafuda mention. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think that the warlords were a complete detriment to the world government in any way, or am I just spitting a bunch of bull honky? Also, let me know your favorite and least favorite warlord and why they are both Edward Weevil. If you crave more One Piece and or manga content, be sure to subscribe to my second channel, More Jiggler, as that's where I'm going to be posting chapter reviews again for One Piece and a few other series. And of course, be sure to subscribe to this channel for more crazy content. I have a lot of exciting things coming, which I hope will at least be somewhat entertaining. But that's enough shameless self-promotion. Class is dismissed. I'm gonna go play Marvel Rivals. I mean, train my hockey. Okay, bye.
Don't give it up, Luffy. Don't give it up, Solo. Don't give it up, Nami. Don't give it up, give it up, give it up, give it up, give it up.
You know, from the front, it appears as quite the stable contraption. Then you take a look at the back, and my god.